Oh, a vintage piece. Yes, heading back to Indy. Philip Rivers. It only took him 5 years to come back to the NFL. Last time there, 2020. At 44 years old, and he's a grandfather, by the way, deciding to sign with the practice squad on Monday after a workout. At 8-5 and 4 games left, Indy, of course, all those injuries when it comes to the QB room, it's a mess. But in comes Rivers, who last played with the Colts there when they had 2020, and they went 11-5 at a postseason appearance. But take a look at this. Our very own J.J. Watt giving us a little more insight on Rivers back in Indy, saying, fun fact, learned in production meetings, Philip Rivers ran the same offense as the Colts for his son Gunnar in high school this season. He and Shane Steichen spoke weekly about it and discussing plays and even film, so some familiarity when it comes to the scheme, so no problem whatsoever. So we'll see how that translates for Pop coming to Indy. All right, my guy, Jonathan Jones, checking in with us. What more can you tell us about Rivers, or I guess old man Rivers, heading back to Indy?
So we've been talking, Brandon, like, okay, he's signing to the practice squad, and if he is brought up to the active roster, that his Pro Football Hall of Fame eligibility resets in 5 years. I don't think that we need to be talking about it as ifs, okay? He didn't go to Indianapolis on his 44th birthday. He didn't work out for this team. He didn't sign to the practice squad as a semifinalist in the Pro Football Hall of Fame to simply just join the practice squad. So long as the practices go well on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the Colts adjusted their practice schedule. You know, it's late in the season. You have a hard practice on Wednesday. You practice well on Thursday, and then it's a lighter Friday. They are having a lot more practices on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to get that man ready. I believe he's going to take the first team reps so long as his body allows him to on Wednesday going into Thursday, see how his body responds going into Friday. But I very much believe the plan in Indianapolis is that Philip Rivers is going to start this week against the Seattle Seahawks. Look, he's never had the strongest arm, okay, but has he stayed in shape? Sure. Has he stayed in football shape? Of course not. But he's going to be operating out of shotgun a lot. You don't need too much from him athletically. You weren't getting too much from him 5 years ago when he was 39 years old, and you were in the playoffs with him. And so we see the schedule right there. It is going to be a tough sled for the Indianapolis Colts. Who knows if he's going to be able to will them into the postseason. But Riley Leonard has that knee injury. I don't think he's even going to be able to play. They have Brett Rippon on the practice squad. If they felt comfortable with Brett Rippon, if they felt comfortable going out and signing a Sam Ehlinger off the Denver Broncos practice squad or a Bailey Zappi off the Cleveland Browns practice squad, those things could have happened. But instead, they called Philip Rivers, retired Philip Rivers, and now, again, this isn't just a fun story. I truly believe this is going to happen so long as practice goes well this week.
JJ, let me ask you this, because you mentioned some things there. Like, obviously, yes, he's 44. We don't expect him to throw 50 passes a game. I think he's going to be doing a lot of this to the guy that's an MVP candidate in the backfield, Jonathan Taylor, as long as they still stay healthy. But, you know, Leonard is not there, obviously, and you got Rippon as well. Is this a stopgap until the others get healthy, or could we really see him maybe start, you know, the last 4 games here?
So, first of all, yeah, the idea, the theory is, of course, let's let Jonathan Taylor dictate terms to the defense. Well, the last couple of weeks, defenses haven't let Jonathan Taylor do that. So let's load up the box. And defenses, especially the Seattle Seahawks, are going to say, beat us with your arm, Philip. Beat us with your mobility, right? Like, we're not going to let Jonathan Taylor, of all people, beat us. So that takes care of the first question. The second part, of course, is this a stopgap? Look, is it possible that when Riley Leonard gets healthy, that he offers them a better option than Philip Rivers, because Philip Rivers looks like a 44-year-old who hasn't played professional football in 5 years? Sure, that's possible. But of course, the Colts have very high hopes and expectations. I don't think that Philip Rivers, who's a proud man, I don't think that he comes out of retirement to go out there and just look terrible on the field. Okay, so there's some level of logic here, right, and ration and reason that I'm using to say that the Colts, so long as Philip Rivers is healthy enough, should be the starter for the foreseeable future for these final 4 games. But we'll see, of course, if his body can hold up, that he offers a better option than the young Riley Leonard.
This, of course, is a unique situation, not just for the Colts, but other teams maybe in the future that may have this problem when it comes to it. And my question to you, maybe the solution in the future, a later trade deadline where you're maybe not hamstrung with, we have to go get a 44-year-old that hasn't played in 5 years. Could that be an option in the league in the future?
You know, it's been talked about for several years about pushing the trade deadline later. A couple years ago, it was pushed a week, and that was to kind of coincide with the 17th game being added to the regular season. I'm going to say what I personally like, and it is obviously echoed around the league, is that there does have to be a cutoff point for the trade deadline, because the game of football is not checkers. It is chess, and roster construction takes a lot of thought. If you push the trade deadline to now, for example, what about the teams who have 1, 2, 3 wins? Are they going to start selling off parts knowing for certain that they are eliminated from playoff competition? What about the teams who have 10 or 11 wins? Are they going to be bigger buyers at that point? And so you may incentivize tanking a little bit versus teams having to determine, hey, if this guy goes down, are we set back here? Have we developed our quarterback or whatever position group it is? Now, take, for example, the Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson goes down with that eye socket injury in Week 6. There were still a couple of weeks left before the trade deadline. Now, they liked Riley Leonard. Obviously, they liked Daniel Jones. They felt comfortable enough at that quarterback position. Should they have gone out and traded a conditional 7th-round pick to get a veteran quarterback in case something happened to 1 or 2 of those quarterbacks? Perhaps. But those are the dice that you ultimately roll. So I don't see the trade deadline getting pushed back at all. Maybe a week, maybe another week eventually. But something as late as into December, like what the Colts are faced with right now, I don't think that'll ever happen.
If it was an option there in Tampa, you probably would buy a lot of things there, because they've been bitten by the injury bug pretty much every possible position you could think of, quarterback, receiver, you name it. Obviously, in October, we were talking about them as a contender, but now it's like they're fighting in that division with the Panthers. So that raises some questions about Todd Bowles and his future there. What are you hearing about that?
So I'm not hearing anything concerning about Todd Bowles' future in Tampa. And, of course, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers believe that they are going to win this division. Of course, they still have the 2 games with the Carolina Panthers that will ultimately decide this division. Look, has it been a disappointing season so far for the Bucs, or at least the second half of the year? Yeah, of course it has. Is there still belief within that organization? Naturally, right? So losing 4 out of the past 5 has not shaken the confidence of folks there in Todd Bowles, who signed a contract extension this past offseason. So let's remember that. The Bucs not really keen on firing coaches that they just signed contract extensions to. He was going into the last year of his deal. He got several more years added to that. Look, losing to the Panthers twice, not making the playoffs, not winning the NFC South for a record, I think, 5th time at this point. Yes, that would be disappointing in Tampa. There's no question about it. But are we talking about a hot seat for Todd Bowles? Absolutely not.
I feel like every year when it comes to Todd Bowles, there's always a little simmer there for no reason, then it goes away. So we'll see how it pans out there in Tampa. Elsewhere in the college ranks, this is very awkward to talk to you about this, but Marcus Freeman, he's been under the microscope for a couple days now. The whole thing with Notre Dame, not getting the CFP, no bowl games. We're not doing that this year. But now here's where we get to your lane. There's maybe some interest and peak interest in the NFL. What can you tell us about that?
His name's being tossed around a lot. And I don't think that his name would be tossed around so much if Notre Dame had gotten into the playoff, right? Everyone would say, he's focused on the Fighting Irish. But now that they're out, now they're not playing bowl games, now that the world is conspiring against the Fighting Irish, could Marcus Freeman leave? Look, here's what I'll tell you. There has been a, moderate level of interest in Marcus Freeman in NFL coaching circles the past year. The Chicago Bears had interest in Marcus Freeman. I can tell you without a doubt there are people within that building very interested in Marcus Freeman. Of course, obviously going with Ben Johnson there and not looking back. But could he be a candidate at a couple of NFL stops? I would say not the Tennessee Titans, who are going to go, I believe, with someone with some NFL, first of all, not only NFL coaching experience, but NFL head coaching experience. That seems to be the way things will be moving in Nashville there. But the name and the place that Marcus Freeman has been associated with, the New York Giants, is that possible? Sure. It's still early. I want to be very, very clear. It's still early. And to get a Marcus Freeman who doesn't have NFL head coaching experience to the Giants and pair him with Joe Shane, who could be a lame duck general manager, right? His contract runs through the end of the 2026 season. No one anticipates that he would be getting a contract extension if he's even retained come January. That's the name, that's the place a lot of people are thinking about right now. We'll see if it ultimately develops. I've written about this. It's hard for college football coaches to become NFL head coaches because of the calendar, right? With the transfer portal, you have to just leave your team. You have to desert them when you have already locked up everyone in order to go to the NFL. And so Marcus Freeman has a really good deal in Notre Dame. Really, really good deal in South Bend. Would he ultimately leave for the NFL? I think there's a lot of coaches who would, but it has to be the right fit. But I can tell you this, without a doubt, there's plenty of interest in the NFL, some intrigue, I should say, in Marcus Freeman if he ever potentially wants to make the jump if the fit is right.
He is Jonathan Jones. Yeah, we saw that last year with the Bears, so we'll see what happens towards the end of the season in the NFL. As always, appreciate it, JJ. Don't forget, you can see everything on Sunday with JJ as well. Look at the crew. Musso and B-Mac front and center. Look at that. Smooth tie. I see it, JJ. Sundays at 4 Eastern, the Game Day Reset on HQ.